so she told me I could make up whatever I want, and I don't even know where to go with that. But she really likes to dance to live music. I'll just say that. So her season's about to happen. Anyway, welcome, Audrey.
Thank you for that. I am Audrey. I am a nurse, and tonight I'm going to share with you what it's like from the patient and nurse perspective. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 3, 2, 1. The tears were pooling down from my eyes into my ears as I lay in my last Pilates class for several months, as I heard a voice within my soul tell me, Audrey, you just have to walk through this. Just surrender. I was on my way to the University of Washington Medical Center in Seattle for a risk-reducing bilateral double mastectomy with immediate reconstruction for the BRCA1 positive mutation that I had. I had been climbing this mountain since I was a child. I grew up in Valdez, Alaska, and I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be Mother Teresa. I wanted to be a world traveler. But quickly and early on, I learned that without cancer is something I should dream of as well. You see, cancer was everywhere. It was in my immediate family. It was in my extended family. And when I was 16 years old, and my mom got diagnosed with the same cancer at the same age that my grandma had gotten diagnosed with, I knew this wasn't just a coincidence, and all of a sudden fear really took over my life. I chose nursing school instead of medical school so I could have that family, so I could live in the moment, so I could embrace my 20s, so I could really just be. I was self-medicating though with adventure, with adrenaline, with overconsumption of food, sometimes drink. I did anything I could. I had kids young. I didn't want to face that fear. But 4 years ago, I had a 1-year-old daughter, and I was truly inspired because I knew that she learned from my actions and not from my words. And I decided to embrace the journey and own my story. And they tell you that 10 years before a family is diagnosed with cancer is when you should start getting screened. So I talked my sweet mom into getting the genetic test done, and she came back positive. I found out at a 12-hour shift at the hospital in the mom-baby unit last year in February, and I continued to climb that mountain, and on February 28th, I reached one of the most toughest, grueling parts of my journey, and I found out I, in fact, too, was BRCA1 positive. And I knew what I had to do. I knew because my entire life from a young child had been motivated by this fear of this disease, which was captivating all those around me. So I woke up from anesthesia on November 2nd, 2017. And the nurses around me, they shared with me, they told me, you did great, you look wonderful, everything went okay. That they knew that going under anesthesia was the most terrifying thing for me. I had never had surgery before, and this was a 9 to 12-hour procedure, and things could have gone very wrong, but they didn't. Their mindset, their positive affirmations for me as a patient in the most vulnerable and emotionally and physically challenging moment of my life gave me hope, and I needed that hope because that night my body decided to go into hypovolemic shock with a pulse in the 170s and pressures in the 60s over 30s and kidneys that decided to stop making urine. And somehow, though, I knew to ask for a bolus that the nurse hat just didn't turn off. But they gave me a bolus, they gave me several, they gave me 3 units of blood. And the nurse who was with me that night, she was present. She looked me in the eye, she put her hands on my shoulders, she held my hand, she told me the numbers, she knew what I needed to know to feel peace. It helped me feel safe. The next morning, my nurse came in and shared with me how rough his night was. You see, his toddler kept him up all night and he was tired, and I didn't have the energy to tell him, you know, I almost died. Like, could you just be here for me right now? But I didn't have the energy. I just knew that that was not okay. It was a little messed up, and I was happy to get out of that unit because every time I asked for water, or every time my catheter had to be empty, he grumbled, and I just didn't have it in me to advocate for myself at that moment, at the weakest moment of my life. In the step-down unit, I really realized really quickly what it meant to me as a patient and as a nurse to have trust for my team. And trust to me was when the nurses came in the room, they left whatever they had going on in their life at the door. They left their personal issues, they left the patient drama, they left anything at the door. They came in and they were there for me in that moment. They looked me in the eyes. They asked me how I was doing, not just for the assessment questions to be answered in the computer, but because they genuinely cared. They were interested, they were genuine, they were authentic and real, and I trusted them. I needed that trust because I needed an emergency surgery to stop some bleeding, and an hour later, I needed to be disimpacted because of a failed bowel protocol initiation. And instead of just crying and being angry at my nurses, I trusted them. So through the tears, I was able to laugh. Comes full circle, you guys. 6 days ago, I just had my last risk-reducing surgery, a hysterectomy, and phase 2 of my bilateral mastectomy. And unfortunately, my nurse that night, she wasn't with me, and she was off in La La Land. And although my surgery was more complicated again than it should have been, I guess I like to bleed. She didn't answer my questions. She acted like I was a nuisance again to her. And you know, I felt like as a patient and as a nurse, I've been very cognizant of what I ask for. I know nurses are busy and everything, you know, I am one, so I get it. But at the end of the day, I needed her help. I needed to trust her, and thank God there was a patient care tech who did everything that he could to help me feel safe that night. And thankfully it was just one night, and I did grumble my complaint, and I did get appropriate feedback, which I appreciated. So that was the summit of my mountain last week, you guys, this final little loop in this risk-reducing surgery. And here I am today to just know that and experiencing that conquering and tackling my greatest fear has really turned into one of my greatest assets. And because of the courage to change, and because of the courage just to be, and to realize and recognize that the best nurses I had, they were just with me being as well. That connection that we all have, that is the most beautiful gift in this world. And thank you for sharing this journey with me.